Have you been searching YouTube for an easy to understand tutorial that explains how to taper wide leg pants like a professional? If so, then look no further, because in today's video, I'm breaking down the steps to tackle this challenging task. Hi everyone, I'm Christine Warren, and I would like to welcome you to the Creative Sewist YouTube channel, where we discuss sewing techniques and reviews. The first step in tapering a pair of wide leg pants is to identify two key points: the top of the inseam right there, and then you also want to identify where it hits you on the hip, the top of your leg. I've marked the point with a straight pin, so I know that's where I'm going to end my taper. Once you have identified these 2 points, you now need to determine how wide you would like your hem. I have determined that the best width of a hem for me is going to be about 10 inches smaller than what these pants are currently at. So I've gone ahead, and what you will see is I have put 2 marks on my hem, one on the left and one on the right side of the hem, noting where my new seams will end. Once you have determined how wide you want your hem, and you have now marked these points, we're going to draw a line with a ruler. Use a washable marker or a tailor's chalk, but something that you can wash out of your garment once you have made these marks and you're completed. I have now marked my seam line with the washable marker. I've done it on the right side, which is the outside seam, and then I folded my pant leg over on the garment and I marked the new inseam. The reason that you take fabric from both seams is so that the garment, which in this case it's the pants, will lay much better on the body when they're being worn. If you take all that fabric from one seam, the garment will not lay properly. Before I can sew my new inner and outer seams, I have to open the existing hem on these pants and remove a portion of that stitching, which you can see I've gone ahead and I have removed it right there, so that I can extend that seam line straight down to the end of the pant leg. I've given myself about 1.5 inches seam allowance for now, so that I had room to get in there and open it. I don't want to spend a whole day ripping out an existing seam when that's not necessary. So I'm only opening as much as I need to. Now I can take these pants to the sewing machine, I can sew in my new seam, and I'll show you how to redo this hem. I sewed the side seams on each side of this leg. Before I did that, I forgot to mention that I did flatten this fabric out so that the ease of the back leg it's still there. I just flattened the fabric on each side of the seam. So you can see here this little bubble, that's the excess fabric on the back of the leg. But when I sewed these, this fabric was flat. Now let's look at the hem. I'm going to show you here. I did sew my seam the whole way down, but what I did, the reason we opened that existing hem was so that we could sew this line right here. Now that this is done, and you can test it, just flip it up and look. Now you see why we did that. So what I'll have to do on my sewing machine when I rehem these is I'm going to look for the existing cover stitch that is built into my machine. If you do not have a cover stitch or a stitch that is similar to the existing hem on your pants, you can go ahead and you can use a stitch that is close to what's in there as possible, because what you'll notice is I actually only have to fix about 1 inch of this hem now on each side. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use my serger and I'm going to grade these seams down so that I have a more manageable seam allowance. Before I do that, I'm going to slip these on just to double check my leg width, and that is something that you can do as well. If you feel the pant leg is not quite tapered enough for you, you can go ahead and you can repeat this process again until you get the desired pant width the leg width that you'd like before you finish the hem. Okay, I have sewn those side seams and I have graded them. And grading is simply the process of removing all that excess fabric, and then I finished the side seams. Now, I initially started with my serger, and that is the stitch right here, which you can see. It's a really nice professional finish. However, my serger just broke. So I had to adjust, and I went with the mock serger stitch on my regular sewing machine, which is fine. I'm happy with it. It is finishing those edges, and in the interest of time, I want to wear these pants, so I went with what I have, and it's going to work just fine. I then went and I pressed the seams towards the back. Okay, very important. You press the seam allowance to the back. You can start by pressing it one time. If you have a sleeve arm board, use that. Otherwise, just carefully press it towards the back of the pants, and then turn the pants inside out. Press it again so that this seam faces towards the back. Then what we're going to do is we're going to finish this hem. So as you can see, I've pinned it back in place. There's really not that much to fix now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the stitch on my regular sewing machine that is closest to this interlock stitch or this jersey knit stitch, and then I'm going to match the thread color as closely as possible, and I'm going to finish it. Now, to remind you of where we started this project with pant legs that were this wide, and we are now this wide. As you can see, this is a significant difference, and it vastly improves the way these pants hang on the body. So let's review where we are. This is where we started, and this is where I've ended up. I'm going to go and repeat all the steps I just shared with you on this pant leg, and then I'm going to rejoin you as soon as I'm ready to put the hem in so you can see that. Now, I went ahead and I finished the other pant leg. I repeated the steps that I shared with you. I'm now to the point that I want to close up this hem. And what I've discovered on my machine is that I have a stitch that is very similar to this stitch that is currently on my pants. It is not an exact match, but it's close enough to get the job done. So I'm going to go ahead, set up this machine, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So here's the first sew out of that stitch I found that's very similar. What I'm going to do to really make this blend in is I'm going to run a straight stitch down each side so that it blends in even better. I then went through and I ran 2 parallel straight stitches on each side. So there's one row straight stitching on the left and one on the right. And that just kind of mirrors this original hem stitch. It blends in enough and I'm happy with it. So don't stress out about the stitching that you use on your hem. Use what you have and blend in. If for any reason this would bother you, you can always take advantage and use this opportunity to create some kind of artistic design on it. You could put an applique, maybe you have some fancy trim, whatever the case may be, use it to your advantage and turn it into something beautiful. If you are not a current channel subscriber but appreciate sewing tutorials taught by an expert, then please consider subscribing to this channel and turning on the notifications so you are notified every time new content is uploaded. And now, I'd like to hear from you. Are you struggling with a particular sewing technique or have a video suggestion? If so, please leave a comment below. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.